Alright, hello there. So I wanted to introduce y'all to one of my favorite bands currently. It's called UFO, and it's not that well known, but I do think they deserve some more attention, so here I am. There are, or rather, there were some songs that ran on the music back in the day, like Doctor Doctor or Belladonna, but I do want to shed some light on some lesser known songs that I think are even better. So here are my top 5 songs from UFO. And let's start off with my number 5. It's called Alone Again, or the acoustic version. And what I personally really like about music is the raw art of the music. So when I listen to music, I generally appreciate songs that give insight into the artist's progress. And through the lag of the editing and every other remaster or mastered version, you can really hear the art really shine through. And the guitar has been played by Michael Schenker, and since he joined the band in 1974, his influence really shines through. And I overall enjoy all the instrumentals and the raw feeling that Phil Moore conveys with his voice. And overall, I'd rate this song a 7 out of 10, but it's still a straight banger in my opinion. So that's my number 5. All right, coming to my number 4, we've got Come Away Melinda from the debut album UFO 1. And the original song was released in 1958 by Eddie Cochran and Jerry Capehart and was covered by few bands, among them UFO, the Sex Pistols, and another one of my favorite bands, Uriah Heep. Back when I was first introduced to UFO, I started with the debut album UFO 1, and it just the feelings that I got from this song and overall the whole album just clung to me, which is why I would say that this is overall my favorite album of theirs. And I've really enjoyed the dated quality of the song and the whole album. You can clearly hear the interference in the audio quality, and for me, it just adds a lot to the overall feeling. Just from listening to the song, you can practically feel the 70s rushing back. And because I already talked about it, I would say that the Uriah Heep cover is really, really, really good as well. Though I believe that this version suits the underlying tone of the song much better, and that's why I would ranking-wise give it the song solid 7.5 of 10. But it certainly doesn't need to hide in the shadows of the other great songs that UFO has produced, so it's still a very good song. And with my number 3, we got A Million Miles outtakes from the album Forced from 1975. The song was unreleased on the original version, but got released in 2007 on the bonus track. And at this point, I think y'all should start to see a pattern emerge. Because I really like songs that feel less polished, because I find joy in the imperfections of music. Because it just adds, on the one hand, a lot to the listening experience, and you feel a lot closer to the creative process the band goes through while making music. And it just highlights that sometimes great music gets overlooked, as it was in this case. And the overall underlying tone of the song is quite melodramatic and at points even depressing, but I think that it conveys the message of the song quite well. And my personal recommendation that I give to my friends when I send the music is that you always should read the lyrics while you listen to the song, because it just you get a better understanding of really what the song wants to tell you. And normally I would talk about a lot about the contents of the songs, but I do not have the time in this video. Maybe I have time for that in another video if you would like to see that. But I would give this song about an 8.5 from 10. And from here on, it gets really hard for me to pick my number 1 and my number 2 song. And the decision really came down to the wire for me. So I consulted a few friends of mine, and I finally came up with a decision that I was quite satisfied with. So here it is. And with that, my number 2 song is Space Child, again from the Fawcett album, but I chose the live recording at the record plant in 1975. And I must say the original song is already straight banger, but I think the live version elevates the song even further. The guitar is again played by Michael Schenker, and the vocals are again by Phil Morg, as it's just accustomed to. And I think the lower quality recording equipment and the overall conditions of the recording make for an iconic 70s listening experience. And in my opinion, it just adds a lot of texture, if you can call it that, to the song. The text and symbolism are again too much to talk about in this video, but I just highly suggest that y'all listen to the song and read the lyrics with it. But it just conveys the perfect amount of sadness and existential dread that just the song has. And with the guitar play that is again flawless as it's always is with Michael Schenker, I just enjoy his long guitar plays without any vocals because it just hit the spot perfectly. And to be honest, I would call both the studio version and the live version a masterpiece, and I could swap out the live version with the studio version without it losing really any points for me. And ranking wise, I would give this song a 9.5 of 10, and it just barely lost out to my number one. But well, I had to make a decision somehow, and it just got my second place. And without stretching this out any further, my number one song is Queen of the Deep, the early version from the Phenomenon album. And I didn't find specific details why the song wasn't on the 1974 release, but while I was searching through UFO records, I just stumbled upon the song and I just fell in love with the song the instant I heard it. I did hear the Queen of the Deep earlier, the regular version, but the early version is, in my opinion, just clearly superior. And this time it's rather clear for me that the early version is just miles better than the studio version. And if the early version wouldn't exist, I'm not sure I would put Queen of the Deep over Space Child, because the remaster is just a smoother listen to. That is true, though it erases a lot of the intensity and the feeling the early version has. And just in a few seconds, you can hear the clear difference between the edited version and the early version. And specifically, I do enjoy how Phil Mogg's voice cracks at points, and you can just hear the soul he puts into his performance. And if we compare the instrumentals, I just find them so much better in the early version because they are so clear and sometimes even hit a bad note. But that is, for me, just the raw feeling that I enjoy in music, because the imperfections make the listening experience so much richer. And the biggest difference that I noticed is that in the studio version, the vocals were turned down and even a little bit flattened out. And so the song lost a lot of the music, a lot of the magic the early version has. So I just think that the imperfections in both the vocals and instrumentals just elevate the song to a perfect 10 of 10 for me and add so much to the melodramatic vibe that I appreciate UFO so much for. And once again, I cannot stretch this enough. I really recommend that y'all read the lyrics and listen to the song at the same time, because it just adds a lot to the song to understand properly what they're singing about. So anyway, I hope y'all like my list. I made both an Apple Music playlist and a Spotify playlist with both versions of the songs I talked about, if possible. So y'all can make up your own mind. And y'all better let me know if I picked the right songs in the comments. And y'all can suggest some other bands that I should talk about. I do have some other videos planned about bands that I really enjoy and I think deserve more spotlight shined on them. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine. He recently dropped an album called Sludgecore, and I'll drop a link in the description to that as well. And if y'all want to give the little fella a listen, I'd appreciate that. And anyway, cheers, have a nice day, and see y'all.